welcome to Life Changing Solutions Live with Angie Amico. I am just super excited because, as you guys know, I'm always talking about like personal development and the different trainings that we do, and really, it's so. I get so excited when I see people that have been through these courses and have taken on their lives, and they're doing some really huge things. And it's like the moment that these guys, and I'll introduce them in a second, posted something, I was like, you know what? I just have to have them on the show. And so first of all, welcome Lucas and Carissa.
Hi guys.
Thank you so much. So here's like honestly what happens, and you guys know that I believe in full transparency. Like, we did not prep at all. It was like literally I saw his post. I haven't spoken to this guy in like a year or two maybe. And the post read something like, hey, we're leaving the corporate life because we're just going to take off and travel.
Yep, that's basically it. So I mean, it all kind of started where, you know, you're at a point in your life where you realize what actually matters and kind of what doesn't, and from there we just decided we want to enjoy and actually live life as opposed to let it work us around.
So, and what's really funny about that, and we'll get to you in a second too, because I really do want to hear from you, like what, you know, made you want to do this, but like, you were so business, like that's the guy I remember. You were like so business driven, and you just really wanted to climb that corporate ladder. And last I heard, you had you know, reached some levels that you were really going for, and then to just say, meh, I'm just gonna turn left today.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Like, so what happened?
So I mean, it was kind of more about a point that I reached in my life to where I felt that I hit all of these milestones, everything that I've always wanted, everything that I was chasing for. I finally got it, and I wasn't fulfilled inside. And so for me, it was more of an opportunity to uproot and really explore what I want. And I feel that the training honestly had a lot to do with bringing that out of me, wanting to find what you actually want inside as opposed to what you think you should be going for. So that's mainly the big thing.
Right, no, that's awesome. And then how about you? Like, so can you tell us, like, what was your background in, and what made you want to jump on this bandwagon?
Oh yeah, so same, very corporate background. Of course, I went through college, a little bit of graduate school, and just decided that it was something that it wasn't fulfilling. I think that's a good way to put it. I feel like I was working so hard to get towards vacationing and getting towards things to escape life that I forgot to live a little. So it was very important for this.
So what happens, right? Like, how did this even like start, where it's like, hey, it's Tuesday, we should just quit our jobs and grow?
Okay, actually, yeah, that's a great question. So first off, we've been together maybe 6 months now, and we met in our previous position, very corporate, very high stress environment. We were both looking for some sort of an exit, not necessarily to quit the company. At first, we were looking to do a transfer. We explored a lot of different options, and what kind of started happening was it wasn't moving fast enough for what we wanted. We knew we needed to get out of there. No doors were open for us to leave at that point. So we just took a step back. She was actually the first one to bring it up, and she said, can we just do like a road trip or something like that? We were exploring these racks that you actually put on top of Jeeps. We were gonna originally just buy a Jeep, and it like opens up a rack that's a tent. You know, but then as we did a little bit more research, wasn't a big enough size, so then we started going to RVs, and we looked at this one and that one. We did a lot of research, and finally ended up with a Class A motorhome, and we're couldn't be more happy.
And then you're gonna take your dogs, right?
Yeah.
So it's just you four just going, and there's no plan.
Yeah, no real plan. I mean, obviously we want to see family, and that's kind of the other big thing too, because as you mentioned, the dogs are pretty much our world. We do everything for them, and that was the biggest reason why we got the motorhome. Because if it wasn't for them, we would be international, probably just doing something else. But I think a big aspect of that was I wanted to enjoy my life, I want her to enjoy her life, and I want my puppies to enjoy their life.
I love that.
Yeah.
So it's like, but again, like you just like, and I am still dumbfounded. Like, you're just literally, I think August 1st is when you're gonna embark.
August 1st is our tentative date. Like you said, there's no real plans.
Right. And so right now you're currently your guys already quit?
Retired.
Or retired. Okay. I love that, the whole free spiritedness and stuff like that. So you're gonna visit family, but other than that, like, you guys really are just gonna take off and
wherever the wind blows us, we will stay.
Right. That's very, what's the word? Wanderlusty.
Yes, exactly.
yes,
yeah,
yes.
nomadic.
Nomadic
that's,
wonders. That's
we've
what.
been thinking a bunch of hashtags lately.
And speaking of hashtags, like you guys have, there's Instagram, right? And so you're going to be documenting your whole journey?
Well, yeah, so it'll be on Instagram. IGTV is the I guess the competitor for YouTube. We will also be on YouTube as well. We want to just start filming a little bit of a segment, so if people want to follow a little bit of our journey and see where we're at today, it's a way to jump in. So for Instagram, our handle would be at Fate_official_, and that's the exact handle. We'll also
So-
post a link.
Right. So, one more time. What is it?
So in Instagram, it's Fate, FAIT_official_.
Okay, and so, but, like, again, I just have so many questions in terms of, like, you guys have no return date, nothing like that. So what is it like to feel so free? Because that can be pretty scary, right? Like most of us, like you were describing, like at first you want to live the traditional life, which is to buy the home, to have the kids, and be settled and rooted.
Right.
And you guys are like, nah.
Yeah, and it's almost like once it got to that point, it was a little overbearing, because it's like, you're right, I wanted the car, I wanted the house, I wanted this and that, and every step made me feel more and more rooted, and each step, it was like, this is what society tells you need to do to be happy, but then each step you get in, it's like, I'm not feeling any happiness from this. So a big part of it is now uprooting and just going to do whatever it is that we want to do. And a lot of people have asked me, how aren't you scared? And I honestly think the biggest thing that scares me is that I don't really have any fear at all for the journey.
That's pretty cool. How about you? Like, what's your take on that?
No, it's the same. I agree on being rooted, thinking that it was made up happiness. So everything kind of felt made up in the way that making good money and having nice cars and going out for nice dinners is all okay, but is that real happiness?
Right.
At the end of the day, I didn't know who I was or if that was society telling me what happiness was. So it's very important that we do this. Yes.
That's awesome. And I think there is a difference too. Like as you guys were speaking, it just came up for me. The difference between being rooted and cemented. I think that being rooted, and it has that sense of grounding, and you're connected, and it feels right in whatever it is that you're up to in your life. For you guys, it's taking off and doing all that. And for others, it could be the corporate job with the families.
Right,
and the
absolutely.
But it's really, I think when you start to feel uneasy, I would call that like being cemented, because you're like weighed down and this doesn't feel right. And you're like, ugh.
Well, and also to clarify, to speak on your point, I feel that at one point it was a part of my journey. It was what I really truly wanted, to do the corporate things, and it's not necessarily that I regret anything at all. It's that I got to a different point in my life, and sometimes your wants and needs change, and that's kind of where I'm at now.
And I love that too, because that's something that, like, going back to the trainings and personal development, is just really accepting what is in this moment.
Exactly.
And allowing yourself to just evolve and change and be like, you know what, you guys may take this trip, and I hope not, but 2 weeks go by, you're like, we want to come back home.
Oh yeah, we've definitely thought of that too,
And they're having no shame in that, and then just also being able to just be who you are. And I think that's really what draw me to your guys' story, is that you're allowing yourself to embrace who you are,
Right.
and where you're at right now in this time in your life, and just going for it.
Right.
So, like, really big kudos to you for that. So is this something, like, even though we're talking about, like, it is what it is and it will come, but have you guys thought about, like, what happens after? Because I know there's no end date, but then have you gone beyond that, like when?
No, so that's kind of the beauty of it, because we'll take it as it all comes, and then we'll just continue doing whatever we feel is appropriate at that moment.
I feel the same about it. Yeah. I think that's the beauty of it, is there is no end date. We have no idea, and we're kind of happy with that. Not having an idea of what happens next.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a large portion of it, back to the training, I think that was something that really helped me jump out of my shell, because a lot of people will get into this area where they're too afraid to leave. They're too afraid to step out of that boundary. And now I feel like I need to embrace that feeling. It's becoming comfortable with the uncomfortable. And I feel like that's where the true magic will happen in your life every single time since I've noticed that the best things happen to me when I just take a little bit of risk on it, you know, because what's the worst thing that can happen? At the end of the day, I don't have a job. I'll go back to work. At the end of the day, we don't want to live here. We'll move somewhere else. At the end of the day, we could do whatever it is that we want to do in the moment.
I love that. And actually, I can't think of the movie. It's a completely random thought. But there's a line that I actually use a lot. It's like, but did you die?
Right. Oh, yeah.
Right. And so it's
Yeah.
kind of like that. Like when you start to go down that rabbit hole, it's like, what would happen if I quit my job? You know, oh, well, I would be this, I'd do that. And you start going down that, it's like, but did you die?
Right.
No. So
Right.
then that gives you the opportunity to be able to like change things and do what you want. My workshop is actually called Design Your Purpose, and it's really living out of that and figuring out what your purpose is and doing what feels good to you. The way that I describe, like for me, life is kind of like a kite where you're still tethered. Right. So you're not completely like a bag in the wind, just no direction or anything, but you're free enough to be able to flow through things and be able to, like, again, go back to that, like, hey, today I want to be, you know, living this awesome adventurous life, and
Right.
tomorrow I'll go back to Wall Street if that's what I want to do. But it's really based on our choices and what's right for us in that moment, you know, and accepting that. But some people, like, again, going back to that, like, attachments, they're stuck on needing to control things or needing to plan every single detail.
Right.
Do you guys have any tips you know, that you could give to the audience and say, like, hey, just little nuggets of how to release?
I have one. Do you have something? Okay, I'll go first. Because my biggest tip for everyone out there is you attack any obstacle thinking of how would you eat an elephant. You can't eat it all in one bite. You have to take little bites out of it. And I know that's kind of a gruesome analogy, but the point being, if it's something large. Yeah, do you? Okay, yeah. So the point being, if it's a large objective that you want to accomplish, just start with one thing first, because if you look at the entire plate that you'd have to eat, it's going to be overwhelming and you will back down. It's just human nature. So just think of one little piece at a time and don't let anything stop you. Persistence will always beat the resistance.
And I think not being scared is important. Knowing that everything happens for a reason is very important, especially in what we're doing. Like, everything is just happening for a reason.
Absolutely.
And I think it's also important, like, I mean, you guys, like, are obviously an extreme example of letting go and just going with it and taking that big risk of just, you know, going from the corporate life to this wanderlusty nomad life, right? Yeah. But I also think for you guys out there, like, wanting to take that leap, you don't have to go so extreme. And as you mentioned, it could just be the first bite, which is maybe downsize from, you know, you think that keeping up with the Joneses involves having this mansion of a house that you are struggling to maintain, or whatever's in it, or the cars, or these things. Yeah. You can start by releasing those things and just saying, hey, you know what? I don't need this anymore.
And you nailed it on the head, because that's kind of a tipping point that I felt. I bought the bigger house way above my needs, you know, and then just upkeep and all this other stuff, and then the cars and dealing with registrations and all, and then so from there it's a snapping point, and I just felt like it was a time to start moving away from that and start focusing a little bit more on what is enjoyment. It's not blowing money on trivial items, you know.
Right. I mean, and there is that saying, I mean, and granted, money is important, so I'm not going to say, like, you don't need money or that financial stability. So, of course, of course, be responsible. Like, that's, you know, don't just be like, hey. But also know that you don't have to keep up with the Joneses. You don't have to do what your family has traditionally taught you. Like, most of us were brought up to work.
Right.
You know, it's like you go to work, you put in your 40 years, you get your watch, and then you look back and say, huh.
Yeah.
You know, I would have, could have, should have done so many things. And that's another thing that I'm really big about, is like releasing that resentment or that guilt over things. And that this is one way, is to really just start small in letting go. And I also do believe that when you start to let go of the physical things, emotionally you start to heal as well. Like, there's just something about that where when you let go of the vase that belonged to your mom, right, where you're like, I didn't realize that I was so attached to this, but no, this is not my mom, this is not whatever. And so you start to really just, feel lighter.
Yep.
It's true.
So is that where you...
Well,
I
and
see
to
you nodding
speak,
your head.
well, yeah, to speak on it though, just because what popped into my head, I have a perfect example, and I didn't even think about it up until you just said this. But a big part of why I want to live my life now, just so you know, I'm 28 years old. Chris is 25. The biggest reason why I feel that this is something that's important to me, I used to be a banker for Bank of America, and one of my clients, they were both elderly couple. They were working their entire lives to be able to retire. And 2 weeks before she retired, she passed away, and him at that point, he had enough money in the bank to do anything. We're talking millions, and at that point, he felt that he was too old and too alone to even travel. And he said the biggest regret in his life was that they waited, and waiting doesn't. Tomorrow's never promised.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. I'm like, I felt the emotion in that way. And I was
Yeah.
like, and however, do you have like anything that like really resonates with you?
Well,
on
I
that?
like what you were talking about downsizing, because it really was the hardest thing out of all of this, was to downsize my closet, my shoes, get rid of purses. It literally took a part of me, but we have like 5 donating boxes in the
Yeah.
garage now,
Yeah.
to where a lot of it just comes, like today, just even getting ready for this, I was like, oh, I gotta pull some clothes out of somewhere, because
Right.
I wouldn't pack
Yeah.
like nice things anymore. Like material things really don't matter at this point. We have our dogs, I have Lucas, and we have the RV,
Yeah.
and there's not a lot of things that you need after that.
Amen.
And that's one of the things, like, and again, for like, you guys really are like that extreme, but for those of you out there, I've gotten this, and I just shared with you, like, I used to have a counseling center, and it was pretty successful, and things were going great, and I just walked away, I closed it down. And I have a lot of people like, oh, what happened? Was it like unsuccessful? I'm like, no, I had actually quite a large amount of, staff and clients and everything else. And they're like, so then what? I'm like, I just wasn't feeling it anymore. It wasn't
Right.
something that I wanted to do anymore. And as a result, like in the last couple of years, like financially, I've had to downsize and let go of some things. And people are like, oh, well, you're struggling. It's like, no.
Right.
Like, I get where you're coming from, and by, your
Perception.
world, right, and
Right.
perception and worldview, it's like, yeah, okay, I get why you think I'm struggling, but it was a very conscious choice, and I can honestly say it's been extremely liberating, and then I have kids, so, my kids have also been learning how to be able to just be like, and actually they were some of my biggest teachers as well, because they're the ones that they're like, hey, do we really need,
Wow.
all of this?
Yeah.
And so it's like,
Typically not what you hear from kids.
and they're like, and so I'd be the one like, hey, do you want this? They're like, no, not really.
Wow.
And for Christmases, it's like we stop buying gifts and we go on trips.
Yes.
No, that's awesome.
Yes.
And so like, and again, so we do what we want to do, and most people are like, that's so weird. Weird is good.
Right.
I like weird, and I really encourage everybody else to be able to like live their lives in that way and be able to just be free, whatever that means to you.
Right.
So again, you don't have to just get an RV and take off. You don't have to, close your business. And I've heard other stories, but it's like definitely start, like my encouragement is for everybody to live their life the way they want to, and designed by them, and just really fulfilled. And I think that's what you started off with, that word, was finding that fulfillment in whatever it is that you're doing.
Absolutely.
And if you're not and you feel weighed down, then look in for some, start exploring and trying new things to see what works.
Yeah.
Because you definitely don't want to end up like that couple. Like, that was a really sad story. Like, honestly, like if you kept talking, I probably would have started crying.
Yeah.
Because it really touches me, because how many times has that happened?
Right.
It's like tomorrow is not promised.
Right.
I mean, and we take that for granted.
Right.
So really, I want to acknowledge you guys for taking your lives on in such a way that you're going to live the way that you want to. And I really commend you. And it's like, 28, 25, I'm a little bit older, not too much. But like, you guys are young, and it's like, that is so awesome that you're willing to like take that on and just go for it.
Yeah.
So are there any last words that you guys like want to throw out there, or anything that...
I got something.
Okay.
As far as, because you were talking about experiences and how your kids would rather have a trip than a gift, I personally think that's a very important aspect, just because they say you make 80% of your entire life's memories through 20% of your life's experiences. And I encourage everyone who's watching, think about the birthday gift that you got when you were a child. I'm willing to bet you couldn't remember one of them. At the end of the day, though, you could probably remember every single trip that you've ever taken with the people that you love and care about. So, something to think about.
Right, in a sidebar, sorry. It was like, as you said that, I remember hearing somebody saying that vacations are planned disasters.
Yeah.
Right, because and it's like that's one of the things that I remember, like even till this day we sit with my family and we'll start to like think of things that happened when we were little, and it's like, oh, do you remember when like cousin Bobby like tripped and fell?
Yeah.
You know, or do you remember when it's like there was one story, it's from my in-law side of the family, but my ex-husband had a little like the little sticky hand,
Mm-hmm.
and he was playing with it and he hit it on one of his uncle's head over, and he was wearing a toupee. And just pulled it.
Snatched it off.
It just snatched it. It was an accident.
Yeah.
You know, of course, in the moment, the uncle was like mortified, and everybody was like,
Right.
it was an issue in the moment. But now,
You
like
could look
30,
back
40
and have a great
years,
time over it.
right? Everybody laughs over
Right.
it. So it's absolutely that. Like, you know what? It's things that we like later start to like really, like, it's funny because like in the moment it's great, but it's just like, it's kind of like a good wine, right? Like once it stews and it just, you know, stays for a few years, like when you start to look back, it's just that
You have an
much
appreciation.
better.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there any last words for you?
No, just find your own happiness, whatever makes you happy, and really strive and go for it.
Thank you. And actually, Flavio, do you remember Flavio?
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Jimenez.
Thank you so much, Flavio. You're also an inspiration. I watch your show all the time. So if you guys want to catch some real estate news, follow Flavio Jimenez. But so thank you so much for watching. Okay, so one more time, what is that Instagram channel? Or
So
follow?
Fate FAIT _ official OFFICIAL _
And it is on the screen. And you know what? I want to wish you guys the best of luck. You definitely have one follower at least, and hopefully we got
Beautiful.
you some more.
Yeah.
And you know, best of luck, you guys. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you so much, and thank you
you.
for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming. All right, guys. So until next time, later coming up, we have Graciela oh my gosh, I love you, honey. Graciela Chagoyan with Somos Emprendedores, and then she and I have our show with Como Yo Lo Veo. So talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye-bye.